They laughed at your dreams, but now they're watching you live them. Chosen one, this message didn't find you by accident. It's divine timing. God led you here for a reason. You may not realize it now, but you're walking into a reality they said you'd never reach. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is the result of faith, resilience, and a power they never saw coming. You've been through seasons that tried to break you, surrounded by voices that doubted you. They laughed when you dreamed. They rolled their eyes when you spoke of visions bigger than your surroundings. But guess what? You're manifesting the life they swore you'd never have. And the most beautiful part? You did it by staying true to who you are. Let's break this down in 7 powerful chapters so you can truly understand the weight of what you're stepping into. Before we dive deep, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because this message isn't just content. It's divine confirmation for the chosen ones who are manifesting the very life they were told they'd never have. If your spirit resonates with this frequency, type 77 in the comments right now. That number isn't random. It's a sacred signal, a confirmation to the Most High and the universe that you're aligned, awakened, and stepping boldly into the blessings that were once denied to you. Not everyone will make it to the end, only the truly chosen. And those who do will gain clarity, spiritual insight, and unlock the deeper truths hidden in every word of this message. This isn't just something to hear once. It's a living truth. A spiritual blueprint unfolding in layers. Rewatch it whenever your soul calls for it, because each time you'll receive a new revelation, a divine key that unlocks the next level of the life they said you'd never have. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. They only saw the struggle, not the seed. From the outside, it looked like you were failing. You were overlooked, underestimated, and even mocked. People judged your progress based on what they could see, not knowing that the real work was happening deep within. They saw the delays, the silence, the setbacks, and they assumed you were done, that you'd peaked, that your story was over before it even began. They whispered about your downfall, laughed at your dreams, called you unrealistic. Some even felt sorry for you, not knowing you were never seeking their pity. You were seeking your purpose. But what they failed to realize is that what looked like a breakdown was actually a divine breakthrough in disguise. You weren't buried. You were planted. There's a difference. Buried means forgotten, but planted means purpose. Planted means something is about to grow, even if the world can't see it yet. The darkness you were in wasn't a grave. It was ground, holy ground. A sacred environment where your roots could grow in silence, protected from premature exposure. God was covering you, not punishing you. He was preparing you, not ignoring you. He had to isolate you, to insulate you, because what he was building in you couldn't be rushed, and it couldn't be exposed to just anyone. The weight of your calling required foundation, stability, depth. Every tear you cried was watering your destiny. Every time you got rejected, your spirit grew stronger. Every betrayal became fertilizer. Every delay became divine alignment. You thought you were losing, but God was making sure you would last. They didn't see the nights you wrestled with self-doubt, praying for a sign to keep going. They didn't hear the spiritual warfare waged in silence. They didn't feel the pain of waiting while others seemed to pass you by, but God did, and heaven took note. So when things started shifting, when you started walking different, thinking different, rising higher, they were caught off guard. They thought it happened out of nowhere, that it was sudden, that it was a stroke of luck. But this wasn't sudden, this wasn't random, this was sacred. This was the manifestation of years of hidden obedience, of inner work, of soul growth. This was what happens when a chosen one refuses to give up, even when everything around them screams defeat. Now your growth is undeniable. The ones who laughed are watching, the ones who left are lurking, and the ones who never believed are being silenced by the very fruit they swore would never come. But this isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving God right. He saw the seed in you when no one else did. He saw the potential, the promise, the power, and he knew the struggle would become your soil. That one day what was hidden would bloom for the world to witness. Chosen one, don't downplay your growth to make others. Chapter 2. You believed when nobody else did. The world told you to be realistic. They said your dreams were too big, your vision too wild, your expectations too high. They tried to convince you to play it safe, to settle for a life that made sense on paper but made your soul feel empty. Everywhere you turned, there were voices pushing you toward mediocrity, telling you to conform, to compromise, to give up and grow up. But deep down, something in you refused to settle. You knew there was more. You felt it in your spirit, even when your eyes couldn't see it. You had a vision for your life that went far beyond your current circumstances. And even though nothing around you supported that vision, you chose to believe anyway. You saw something different. You felt called to something greater. While others chased approval, you chased alignment. And that decision cost you. Friends fell away. Family didn't understand. And some people even mocked you behind your back. They thought you were delusional. They said you were out of touch with reality. They couldn't wrap their minds around why you were aiming so high when your life looked so low. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't operating on logic. You were moving in faith. Even on the hardest days, the days when nothing made sense, when everything felt like it was falling apart, you still held on. You may have cried, you may have doubted, you may have felt like giving up, but you never did. Not completely. Something always pulled you back. Some part of you refused to let go of the dream, even when the dream felt distant. And now, the vision is beginning to take form. The life you once only saw in your mind is slowly showing up in your reality. The doors that were once closed are cracking open. The resources are aligning. The opportunities are finding you, not because of luck, but because of your unwavering belief. They called it delusion, but God called it destiny. They said it was impossible, but God said, "Watch me." You were never crazy for believing. You were chosen. You were spiritually wired to see beyond what others could. You had to carry a promise in a place that looked like a wasteland. You had to build while being ridiculed. You had to walk by faith and not by sight. And now your faith is becoming sight. Let this be a reminder. Your belief was never wasted. Your trust in God, your refusal to give up, your vision that wouldn't die, it was all part of the process. You believed when nobody else did. And now those same people are watching the manifestation of what they said would never happen. And this is just the beginning. The vision is still unfolding. The promise is still expanding. Keep believing, chosen one. You're not crazy. You're called. Chapter 3. You endured the mockery in silence. It's one thing to be doubted quietly. It's another to be mocked loudly. To be the one everyone whispers about, jokes about, and underestimates in public. You weren't just overlooked. You were targeted, laughed at, dismissed. You were the dreamer in a room full of doubters, the visionary surrounded by people with tunnel vision. And because you refused to settle for an average life, they made you the punchline. They rolled their eyes when you talked about your goals. They smirked when you spoke with conviction. Some smiled to your face but laughed behind your back. They called you unrealistic, said you were doing too much, that you were chasing fantasies, that you'd never make it. The mockery wasn't always loud, but you felt it, in the way they looked at you, in the fake encouragement, in the side comments disguised as advice. And still, you stayed silent. You could have clapped back. You could have defended yourself. You could have exposed their jealousy, their fear, their small-mindedness, but you didn't. You chose silence, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You knew you didn't need to explain a vision they were never meant to see. God gave that blueprint to you, not them. They were spiritually blind to your calling, so trying to convince them was like showing a masterpiece to someone who only sees scribbles. So you let your silence speak. You let your progress answer their mockery. You let God be your vindicator. While they were laughing, you were learning. While they were gossiping, you were grinding. While they were mocking, you were molding into the very version of yourself that would make the room fall silent one day. And now that day has come. Now the tables are turning, quietly but powerfully. The very ones who dismissed you are secretly watching you. The ones who laughed are lurking behind screens, seeing your glow-up unfold in real time. They don't understand it. They can't explain it. Because when God flips the script, he does it without warning. Suddenly, the one they thought was weak looks strong. The one they pitied now, the one they counted out, is the one walking in purpose. And it's humbling to watch, especially when they remember every joke they made. But this isn't about revenge. This is about revelation. It's about showing what God can do with someone who refuses to quit. Someone who doesn't let mockery break them but uses it as motivation. Someone who trusts God enough to stay quiet and let heaven speak on their behalf. Chosen one, your silence wasn't passive, it was prophetic. Your refusal to lower yourself to their level protected your energy, preserved your peace, and positioned you for the elevation they never saw coming. Now they're confused, convicted, maybe even convicted in their spirit, because the one they laughed at is becoming the one they secretly admire. And some of them, they wish they had just believed in you. Or better yet, believed in themselves the way you did. So walk tall, smile wide, and keep building. Because the same mouths that mocked you may one day speak your name with respect. And when God flips the table, he doesn't just make room for you. He makes sure everyone who doubted you has the best seat in the house to watch. Chapter 4. You were tested in isolation. Before the breakthrough came the breakdown, and before the blessing came the wilderness. Chosen one, you had to walk a road that few could follow. People left. Friends you thought would ride with you for life suddenly disappeared. Conversations grew cold, support dried up. Even family began to look at you differently, as if your growth made them uncomfortable, as if your evolution somehow threatened the box they tried to keep you in. And the worst part, God felt silent. You cried out, but the heavens seemed still. You prayed for direction, but the answers didn't come in the way you expected. You were in a season of divine isolation, when nothing made sense and no one seemed to understand what you were going through. You didn't just feel alone, you were alone. But that isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God had to separate you to strengthen you. He had to silence the noise so you could finally hear your own voice and his. In that stillness, something sacred happened. You found clarity. You discovered just how powerful you really are. When no one is clapping, when no one is checking in, when no one is validating your every move. It was in that hidden place that your identity was refined. You stopped seeking approval. You stopped begging for love in places that kept wounding you. You learned to walk without hand-holding. You learned to trust your intuition, to lean into faith, to fight spiritual battles with nothing but raw belief and a will that refused to quit. Isolation stripped you of distractions, of false connections, of the roles you thought you had to play just to belong. And in the stripping you were rebuilt, stronger, purer, more aligned with your true purpose. While they thought you were losing, you were learning. While they thought you were breaking, you were building. While they thought you were falling off, you were actually falling into place. Now you carry something different. There's a stillness in you that intimidates people, a quiet confidence, a glow that doesn't come from attention but from alignment. You no longer seek crowds because you've already passed the test of being alone. You no longer fear silence because you've learned how to hear God's whisper in it. You no longer chase validation because isolation taught you how to affirm yourself. You didn't just survive the loneliness, you leveled up in it. You became someone unshakable. Someone who doesn't need a spotlight to shine, someone who knows their worth without applause. So if you're still in that silent season, don't panic. Don't question your value because of your current visibility. God hides his most powerful warriors for a reason. He tests them in solitude, so when they step into the spotlight, they're not moved by it. You were tested in isolation because God needed to see who you were when no one was watching, and you passed the test, not just by surviving it, but by growing through it. And now you're not coming out the same. You're coming out wiser, stronger, sharper, and ready for everything they said you'd never be. Chapter 5. You learn to let the vision guide you, not the voices. The noise was loud, deafening at times. Everyone had an opinion about your life, about what you should do, where you should go, who you should be. Some thought they were helping, others not so much, but the result was the same: confusion, self-doubt, hesitation. It felt like your destiny was being drowned out by distractions. You had a vision in your spirit, but it was hard to hear it over the chatter. Be realistic, they said. You should have made it by now. You're too old. That's not how the world works. Nobody's going to support you. They didn't mean to, but their voices became limitations. Their fears tried to become your future. But somewhere along the way, something in you changed. You stopped outsourcing your destiny to people who couldn't even manage their own peace. You realized that just because someone loves you doesn't mean they get you. Just because they have opinions doesn't mean they have vision. And you finally made a decision, one that changed everything. You chose to follow the vision, not the voices. You silenced the external noise and tuned into the internal compass. You started listening to that deep pull in your spirit, the one that never left you even when the world tried to talk you out of it. You realized that God didn't give everyone your vision. He gave it to you for a reason. It was personal, sacred, a roadmap that only made sense in the context of your calling. And that's why you're manifesting now, not because you had all the answers, not because the road was easy, but because you got aligned. You stopped letting fear dictate your decisions. You stopped letting people who quit on themselves try to advise you on how to win. You started moving in purpose, even when it didn't make sense to your bank account or your surroundings. You chose faith over familiarity, spirit over statistics, purpose over popularity, and now people are starting to notice. They're scratching their heads, wondering how you got here, wondering how things are shifting for you, how doors are opening, how you carry so much peace in the middle of pressure, how you're glowing when you should be groaning. But they missed the shift. They didn't see when you stopped walking with the crowd and started walking with the call. They didn't hear the moment you silenced the world to listen to God. They weren't there when you said yes to the vision and no to the noise. That's how you got here. That's how you're going to keep rising, because from now on, you're not moved by opinions. You're moved by obedience. You're not led by comfort. You're led by calling. You're not trying to fit in. You're flowing in alignment. And that's a power no outside voice can ever compete with. Keep following the vision, chosen one, even when it's quiet, even when it's lonely, especially when it doesn't make sense. Because that vision is your divine compass, and it's leading you to the very life they said you'd never have. Chapter 6. You transformed through pain, not comfort. Let's be honest. Comfort didn't build you. It never could. Comfort may feel good, but it doesn't stretch you. It doesn't challenge your character or awaken your power. You didn't become this strong, this wise, or this grounded by playing it safe. No, what shaped you was the pain. The raw, soul-crushing, earth-shattering kind of pain that makes most people fold. You didn't just get hurt. You got gutted. You didn't just experience disappointment. You were betrayed by the very people you would have gone to war for. You didn't just lose things, you lost yourself for a while. But here's what separates you from the rest. You didn't stay lost. While others avoided the fire, you walked into it. While they numbed themselves, you let it burn. Not because you wanted to suffer, but because something in you knew that this fire wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to forge you. Pain became your forge, disappointment became your discipline, loss became your lesson, and heartbreak became the hammer that reshaped your soul into something divine. They saw the transformation, but they didn't see the tears. They see your light now, but they never saw the darkness you had to fight through to ignite it. They admire your strength, but they don't know the nights you almost gave up, when you questioned whether you'd ever feel joy again. But you kept showing up, even when it hurt. Even when no one clapped for you. Even when the progress was invisible and the process felt unbearable. That's why you walk different now. That's why you don't react to nonsense anymore. That's why you carry yourself with peace that confuses people. Because it's not a peace the world gave you. It's a peace that was born out of the storms you survived. You don't need to explain yourself. Your presence says enough. Your energy has changed. Your standards have changed. Your spirit has elevated. The pain forced you to dig deeper, to find strength in silence, to build resilience where weakness used to live, to stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Watch me." You don't even hold grudges anymore, not because they didn't hurt you, but because you've healed past the need for revenge. You've grown beyond the version of yourself that needed validation from people who never valued you. You've leveled up to a place where peace is your revenge and purpose is your proof. They tried to hold you back, but God said, "I'm going to use the very pain they caused to push you forward." They tried to limit you, but God expanded you through the pressure. They tried to bury you, but they didn't know you were a divine seed, and now you're blossoming in the very soil they thought would break you. So no, comfort didn't shape you, the pain did. And now that you've been through the fire and came out gold, you're unstoppable. Because once a chosen one transforms in the dark, nothing in the light can touch them the same way again. Chapter 7. You're becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Here's the truth. They didn't believe in you. They couldn't imagine a future where you would rise. They saw your struggle and assumed that was your final chapter. They mistook your delays as denials and your setbacks as signs of failure. But what they failed to realize is that your story was being written by a higher hand. They tried to put limits on you, but God never agreed with their version. They tried to box you in, label you, and throw dirt on your name, but God said, "That's my chosen one, and I'm just getting started." Now look at you. You're manifesting the very life they swore you'd never touch. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just getting by, but glowing from the inside out. Not just reaching goals, but living in purpose. And here's the twist. It's not even about the material things. They're just the overflow. The real blessing is the peace you carry, the healing in your heart, the freedom to show up as your full self unapologetically, the clarity in your mind, the confidence in your spirit that can't be shaken by external noise. They didn't see this version of you coming. They never expected the underdog to become the leader. They didn't realize the one they dismissed would become the one others looked to for inspiration. But God saw it all along. God knew exactly what He planted in you. And now, after seasons of pruning, pressure, and perseverance, it's blossoming before their eyes. They gossip. They speculate. How did they do it? How did they make it out? How are they shining now when they were supposed to be broken? But they'll never understand, because they weren't with you in the fire. They didn't feel the crushing weight of the battles you fought in silence. They don't know how many nights you cried, questioned, and begged God for a breakthrough. But the truth is, that breakthrough wasn't given, it was earned. Through faith, through endurance, through choosing purpose over pain, time and time again. You didn't chase validation, you chased destiny. You didn't fold under pressure, you became a diamond because of it. Now you walk differently, you speak differently, not from ego, but from elevation, not from pride, but from perspective. You understand now, everything you went through was making you into the version of yourself you were always destined to be. So don't feel guilty for the glow-up. Don't apologize for the doors opening. Don't shrink so others feel comfortable around your greatness. They weren't with you in the trenches. They didn't water your faith. They didn't carry the vision. They didn't sow into your spirit. So they don't get to have a say in the harvest. God is vindicating you through transformation, not with vengeance, but with visibility. They'll have no choice but to watch what happens when divine purpose meets unwavering faith. You're becoming everything they said you couldn't be, not for revenge, but for revelation, to reveal what happens when a chosen one refuses to give up. You didn't just beat the odds, you became the miracle. And the best part? You're only just beginning. This transformation is more than just external success. It's a spiritual awakening. Every challenge you endured was a lesson in disguise. Every setback was a setup for a comeback. Every tear was a watering for your roots. What you're seeing now is the fruit of years spent in the unseen, preparing for the visible. Others might be distracted by the surface, the flashy moments, the highlight reels, the trophies. But you know better. You know this is a sacred process, not a lucky break. It's about alignment, obedience, and trust in timing beyond human understanding. And yes, some days will still be hard. Old fears will try to sneak back in. Voices from the past might try to shake your confidence. But remember who you are. You're a chosen one, called, equipped, and anointed to walk this path. You carry the legacy of those who believed when no one else did.